Good morning! My name is Nakima Light, licensed clinical social worker, and you have just tuned into LYTE Talks. And I'm so glad that you did, because it's the desire to grow in relational intelligence, emotional wellness, and spiritual maturity. I know that's my desire. How about you? Bro, I just told you not to move! Unbelievable, people! In my brain and everything. Now, today I want to talk about navigating effective communication. Cool. All of us communicate, but I can't say we all do it well, right? And no matter where we are in our communication, we can improve. Effective communication is an area that we want to tackle and be good at, right? Because we want to win in our relationships. Communication is not about us or the other person, really. It's about the success of the relationship. So I'm going to be talking about it in that vantage point. So even thinking about how we communicate, we might understand verbal, nonverbal. That's my nonverbals. But also there's like so many different options now in 2020 when we got Twitter, text, DM, email, text messages, FaceTime, WhatsApp, you name it. So it has changed the game for the way in which we communicate. So we want to be able to develop how we still have authentic and intimate relationships in the midst of this digital age. You feel me? So today I'm going to talk about 4 areas that I think will give us a broad understanding of effective communication. Number 1 is the foundational area. Number 2 is communication breakdowns. Number 3 is intimate convo. And number 4 is navigating conflict. Okay, so if you're ready, because I know I am, get your journal, get your pen, get your notepad on your phone, and get ready to take notes. Okay, I'm a spitfire. So, foundational area. I would say if we're going to operate and be successful in communication, we got to first look at how's our communication with the Lord. If we have a constant and consistent prayer life or communication with God, it directly impacts the way that we interact with others. You know, I'll speak for myself. I feel like my communication be stinking the most in my marriage when I'm not spending as much time in my word and not spending as much time in prayer and in the presence of the Lord. If we are walking with God, He's going to give us those nudges and those convictions of where our communication can improve. So a little story. When I first got married, or I don't even remember how many years I was married this yet, the Lord was talking to me about my tongue and how it was crazy. Yeah, it was pretty bad, guys. But He led me to His word, and I started to write down scriptures of meditation on index cards, and I would be meditating and rehearsing them in ways to be able to really just cleanse and teach me a new way of communicating. I would say in a time of conflict, my husband looked at me one time and was like, "Why don't you go get your index cards?" And I was like, dang, that's how you're gonna do me? But I want to share them with you because I think it was an important season. Not saying that I've arrived, but it has helped me a lot. So, got my index cards. Proverbs 10 and 19 says, "Too much talk leads to sin. Be sensible and keep your mouth shut." Enough said, right? Proverbs 18 and 21, you might be familiar with this one. "The tongue can bring death or life. Those who love to talk will reap the consequences." Yeah. James 1 and 19 says, "Understand this, my dear brothers and sisters. You must all be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry." One more. Proverbs 15:1 says, a gentle response diffuses anger, but a sharp tongue kindles a temper fire. So you can see from these scriptures alone, it is a level of conviction that came to me when I would be operating in a certain place. So the foundation of effective communication is first communication with the Lord. So going over to section 2 is the communication breakdowns. Now, this space is where I want to look at the reality of our lives, right? We grew up in places, in cultures, and experiences in childhoods that taught us and shaped the way that we communicate with others. Whether we saw constant arguing, whether we saw people just shutting down or avoiding conflict at all costs, being passive aggressive, not showing affection or expressing love. These are all areas that can impact the way that we communicate. Another area that is sure to give us communication breakdowns, I call the Holy Trinity: me, myself, and I. When we're communicating with just our needs, just our desires at stake, or that's the highest value, there's going to be constant communication breakdowns because two people are butting heads, not speaking to one another, but speaking through one another, not attempting to listen or hear the other person out. So I would say like selfish tendencies or intentions can really be a place where there's communication breakdowns. So again, if we're in relationship with the Lord and we're constantly doing an inventory, a space of confession and repentance, we can see less and less of this showing up. But please understand, like, all of us are guilty of this in some way. We just have to keep it in better check. Another area of communication breakdowns could be the place of and where our thinking is, right? If we have expectations that are unrealistic, if we're jumping to conclusions constantly, doing a level of mind reading where we're interpreting or personalizing each and everything that we hear from our partner, it could be a cause for great distress and strain on the relationship. So overall, what I want you to take from this area is check the patterns in the way that there's the breakdowns in the communication. See where you may be operating in a toxic place, or you might have patterns from previous relationships or childhood that are impacting and shaping the way that you communicate. Being aware of those are important. Say, for example, in my household, there wasn't really arguing, but there was a lot of silent treatment. And I realized when I became married that was my default response in conflict, where I would shut down and just not speak. Whether you're arguing or giving the silent treatment, neither end of the spectrum is healthy. So you want to keep that in check and be aware of it. Area number 3 is intimate conversation. I would say it's something that we all desire in relationship or companionship, whether it be romantic or whether it be platonic with friends. Intimate is literally just the idea of the closeness of the relationship, the level of vulnerability in the relationship. And you might say, well, Nakima, I tried that, but the other person, broke my trust, told all my business, posted my pictures. Listen, sis, we could talk about your picker being broken in another session, but the idea of, if I'm in right relationship with people that do respect me, are seeking the presence of God, and have a relationship with the Father, that's going to be less likely. So we want to focus this on where we are, not necessarily the other person, because we don't have control over them. So commercial break is over, but I want us to think about how intimate conversations can be established based on a mutual understanding that the relationship wants to go deep. We don't want to stay in the shallow part where we just know each other's favorite color, but we want to be able to get to know one another and grow, sharpen one another, and propel each other into purpose, right? I consider my husband my purpose partner, not necessarily my soulmate. And why that is the idea of he understanding my purpose and me understanding his. And that's the ultimate desire, that I want to see him walk out his purpose and hear from the Father, well done. Important things for us to do if we want a level of intimacy and intimate conversations in our relationship is to look at this acronym. Pastor Michael Todd from Transformation Church often uses this in reference to his church body, but I think it's relevant here too. The acronym stands for HOT, or HOT, humble, open, and transparent. And the idea is in the relationship, how honest are we? How open are we to new experiences or hearing different opinions, and how transparent are we, right? So honesty is the idea of speaking truth and not lies, which is different from transparency. I feel like often people mix those two up. If I'm being honest, you ask me something, I'll tell you the truth. If I'm being transparent, I'll tell you without you even asking me. So I believe that a level of transparency takes vulnerability and trust, but it definitely deepens the intimacy of the relationship. And that goes into the other part that I think is important for intimate relationship or intimate conversation, which is sharing and asking questions. You know, the deepness that happens is when we're constantly making exploration and curiosity into that person and doing the same when they're inquiring of us, right? Like, how open are we to sharing? And that might be uncomfortable when we're getting to know one another, but these are the areas in which we can grow, right? It's risky, but yet it gives us the ability to communicate better with one another. Cool? So, you want to try it? I don't know. You can. It's okay. So that's it for today, but I want you to stay tuned for the next segment, where we're going to be talking about effective communication. Part 2 is navigating conflict. You won't want to miss it. Why? Because conflict is in every one of our relationships. And if we don't know how to deal with it properly, it can definitely impact the way in which we communicate. I want to thank you so much for watching. Make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. Go forth and shine your light.